This is the September, it's actually September 14th. Agenda of the month. September 14th meeting of the Belknap County Republican Committee. Are there any trackers here or any press other than Brent Rock? Please identify yourself. Anybody? Anybody? None? Okay. How about guests or first-time attendees? Please identify yourself. Stand up, wave your hand, tell us who you are and where you're from.
Stephen Bogert and
Okay. Hello? Yes.
Ronnie Abbott from Laconia.
Anybody else? Welcome.
Cindy
Okay.
Frito, Meredith.
Great.
Frito Leonard.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. We're going to have the invitation by Vice Chair Terry. Thank you.
Any of you who are able to do so, please stand. Now, this is going to be a shorter meeting tonight, so the prayer is going to be a little longer. Let us pray. Almighty and gracious God, we gather tonight on a day when many of us are tired and worn out from a long and difficult campaign season. Not only this, but you may know that a number of us attending this evening are grieving over disappointing decisions made by people who voted in yesterday's Republican primary. There are not only open wounds among us, but also brokenness between and among us. Things have been said and done that go far beyond honest differences of opinion and policy preferences. Representatives have been misrepresented and attacked personally, some with devastating consequences to accompany their hurts. Oh God, let not these hurts fester and turn to bitterness that will only extend and prolong the harm already done. Rather, would you please give us grace to accept defeats, even if they have been unfairly and unjustly inflicted through dirty and underhanded means. For no defeat is final for those who place their faith and trust in you. And we know from your word that if we walk in the way of suffering set before us, that it will bring us one day to lasting joy and the eternal way of life. Remind us that character is formed best and strongest among those who can look injustice in the face and say that it can be a gift that, if handled with no thought of malice and revenge, will bring us to better places where our lives will matter more for good than if the way had been smooth and easy. Remind and encourage us all too, we pray, and especially those who have been wronged, of the lives and examples of men and women such as Abraham Lincoln, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Joan of Arc, martyred saints, and Jesus Christ, who, regardless of whether we acknowledge him as God's Messiah, was unjustly and cruelly condemned to death. None of us has lost his or her life over the causes for which we presented ourselves to the voters of Belknap County. None of us has been martyred. For those defeated, there will be another time, and another place, and different opportunities. One game and one contest does not mark the end of a season, or even a life of more opportunities. So, oh God, we ask that you prepare each one of us as we wait upon you for the next call to service. Help us to distinguish your voice from among all others, because in so doing, we can be confident that not only good can await us at the hand of the one who created us for lives and meaning and purpose, but it will happen. May we be careful in our conversation this evening and listen for any and all words of comfort and wisdom and truth and hope. Guide us, O thou great Jehovah, pilgrims in this barren land. We are weak, but thou art mighty. Hold us with thy powerful hand. Bread of heaven, feed us now and evermore. Bread of heaven, feed us now and evermore. Amen.
Stay standing. We're going to do the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we stay standing for the singing of the national anthem.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, who whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we walked were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Patty. Please be seated. I'd like to, once again, talk about some of the ground rules for our meetings, much as I did last time. As most of us know, emotions have been running high over the past few weeks over a number of areas of concern to the citizens of Belknap County. That being said, it's important not to lose sight of the essential purpose of our meetings of the Belknap County Republican Committee. VCRC meetings are open to all registered Republicans residing in Belknap County. Any Belknap voters who are registered as undeclared attend to vote Republican may attend up to a maximum of 3 meetings as a guest. Non-Belknap Republicans and undeclareds may attend on a meeting-by-meeting basis, either by the express invitation of the executive committee or by vote of the general members. Again, our meetings are private, and attendance is by invitation or permission following an affirmative vote of the general members only. The agenda for the meeting is set and developed thoughtfully and carefully by the VCRC Executive Committee and its chair. The proposed agenda is presented to the general members in advance of every meeting, and we ask at the beginning of business of each meeting that it be approved as proposed by the general members. Any proposed addition to the agenda must be by a vote of the majority. If not, the item is added without objection. If one general member objects, then the addition may be made by majority vote only. Any change to the adopted agenda during the meeting requires a 2/3 vote of the general members who are present. Nothing said in our meetings should be recorded or repeated outside of the meetings without the express permission of the speaker whose comments are at issue. Other than the granted grok, the rest is not permitted at our meetings, and any recordings done by the grok must be published only with the permission of those whose comments have been recorded, subject to customary editing. No personal attacks are to be permitted at our meetings, and our meetings are not intended to be a debate society. Debate is limited to motions properly and duly made and seconded and be germane to the motion. Departures from this policy and procedure will be ruled out of order. We ask for and expect that all attendees will observe and adhere to our policies and practice restraint, mutual respect, irrespective of how much one may disagree with the views of others in attendance. And that's going to be repeated, I think, probably at every meeting. I'd like to have a roll call of the general members, please.
Glenn Aldrich, Harry Bean,
Yeah.
Priscilla Bean, here, Mike Ford, Barbara Comtois,
Yeah.
Greg Huff, John Johnson, Travis O'Hare, Norm Silver,
Here.
Dave Strang,
Here.
Mike Sylvia,
Here.
Paul Terry,
Present.
Priscilla Terry, Jim Thompson,
Here.
Beth Varney, Peter Varney, Jay Wood.
Quorum.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. The agenda as circulated and is published, you have to have an action to accept it. All in favor, please say.
We didn't ask if anybody.
Anyone have any objections or additions to the agenda?
I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay. Even though Reverend Terry did the invocation, I told him that I wanted to once again read a psalm that I thought would be particularly appropriate right after our primary yesterday. This is Psalm 144, which is probably one of the lesser known psalms. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who traineth my hands for war and my fingers for battle, my loving kindness and my fortress, my high tower, my deliverer, my shield, and he in whom I take refuge, who subdueth my people under me. Lord, what is man that thou takest knowledge of him, or the son of man that thou makest account of him? Man is like unto a breath, days are a shadow that passeth away. O Lord, how thy heavens and come down, touch the mountains that they may smoke. Cast forth lightning and scatter them. Send out thine arrows and discomfit them. Stretch forth thy hands from on high. Rescue me and deliver me out of many waters, out of the hands of strangers, whose mouth speaketh falsehoods, and their right hand is a right hand of lying. O God, I will sing a new song unto thee until upon a psaltery of 10 strings will I sing praises unto thee, who giveth salvation unto kings, who rescuest David thy servant from the hurtful sword. Rescue me and deliver me out of the hand of strangers, whose mouth speaks falsehood, and their right hand is the right hand of lying. We whose sons are as plants grown up in their youth, whose daughters are as corner pillars carved after the fashion of a palace, whose garners are full, affording all manners of store, whose sheep increase by thousands and 10,000s in our field, whose oxen are well laden, who no breach and not no going forth, and no outcry in our broad places. Happy is the people that is in such a case. Yes, happy is the people whose God is the Lord.
Amen.
Psalm 144. Okay, we have the minutes which were circulated, and the copies are there. Looking for a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, someone second it. Any additions, corrections, omissions? Any further additions or corrections, or omissions? All those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay. Report of the executive committee and the chair. We had obviously a very interesting day yesterday. Congratulations to the winners, condolences to the losers. We had a large number of people on the ballot. We had a large number of contested primaries, much larger than the Dems do. By my count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 of the candidates that we endorsed did not prevail in their primaries. But as I have said to many people, that if you cannot accept a loss in any election, you shouldn't be running. It's just part of the way that the things work. So you have to be willing to accept a loss. And these things will happen from time to time. I also would like to remind everyone, look back on the history of our glorious Revolutionary War and look at the battles of General Washington and how many battles of General Washington he lost before he finally prevailed. So I believe we are in a culture war. This was one battle in the culture war, and it will not be the last battle that we'll have to fight. So, any state senators, I think we have Senator Gray as our only state senator here. Senator Gray, we had no primary. You want to say anything?
The thing I want to say something about is what's going to happen on Thursday evening, starting at 4 o'clock. Last year we passed a bill that does an audit of a random number of polling places to check the accuracy of the AccuVote machines. In that bill, we also said we were going to run a test during the primary. And that test is going to happen on Thursday, so that if anybody wants to look at those results and make a different decision on having a recount, that will happen over at the archives this Friday. I'm on the committee that's doing it along with 3 other people, and there'll be support staff from the Secretary of State. One of the areas, one of the towns that was selected is actually Ward 1 in Laconia, so we will be taking all those ballots, running them through a different machine, and then actually doing a 5% audit based on the way that second machine does the count, etc. And then there's another one, I think it's Hooksett or something that they selected. So it's Wyndham, okay, whichever it is that they selected. But that is the start of one of the things that all you Republicans asked for, okay? That there be some kind of a meaningful audit system, for the AccuVote machines so that you can trust their accuracy. So, any questions about it? Yes, sir. So
What are the criteria used to determine whether a recount is necessary or
it's up to the candidate. The state does not have any criteria for itself. The candidate may request it, and it just depends on how much you have to pay, depending on what the difference is in the vote between you and the prevailing candidate.
You're talking about differences expressed by percentage?
Yep, yep.
Is there a minimum, like 1% or 3%?
There's a maximum until you have to pay for it all, but that's in state law right now.
Yes.
Okay?
He's got my question.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I looked at the RSA today, and if you're 2% or less, you can request a recount, and it's only $100 for a state senator.
It's not a big number. But when you get past that percentage, whatever it is, I thought it was 3%, but it may be 2.
Well, that's what I was
But
asking.
then you have to pay for the cost of the recount, okay?
Any other questions for Senator Gray? There's a,
So
Yes, ma'am.
when they're gonna do an audit of, Ward 1 or whatever in Laconia.
Yeah.
They're gonna hand count them first and then run them through to see if it's the
No,
same?
they're
or
not gonna-
Just gonna run them?
They're not gonna hand count the ballots,
Okay,
because if we tried to do that and get the results done by Friday morning so they can be posted, so that the candidates can look at them, because noontime on Friday is the last time, you're not gonna be able to do a meaningful number of polling places. That's why we're testing this system, where we're actually gonna, you have to program a different machine to be able to read the ballot. And this new machine will actually take a picture of the top, the bottom, and assign a serial number to the database with the record of the votes, okay? So we'll compare the tapes from the AccuVote machine with the one from the machine, the new machine, and then we will select a 5% sample of the ballots and compare the pictures on the new machine with the ballot picture and the database.
other questions in the back? There's a.
Barry,
So this audit, is this going to see if the machine, the original machine is actually accurate? Or is it gonna test to see if there was some kind of shenanigans played with the machine?
well, the intent, the original intent was to make sure that the AccuVote machine was accurate, but in testing its accuracy, you should also be able to tell if there was shenanigans.
Follow up.
Yes, sir.
So that would mean to me that you probably shouldn't have told him you was gonna be checking them.
Well, what we're doing, what the law says is that you don't announce which machine you're going to do until after.
Well, they know the general vicinity, if they've got 3 machines, we better not mess with any of these, just in case.
No, it's a free-for-all, and they're supposed to pick communities. The law says that they may segregate them into communities, so they get large machines and small machines. But remember, that right now, with the number of machines that we have, it's around 2,500 ballots per machine. Because the bigger places, like Wyndham, in the election that they had, when they had their 10,006 ballots go through it, they had 4 machines in use. 2 were theirs, and 2 were the schools, I think, or 1 was an extra or whatever.
Well, my point being, if the town or the location has 3 or 4 machines, and they know that they're gonna be checked,
They don't know them.
well, I heard it
The
yesterday. I heard it yesterday. that
Right,
Ward
and
one was
on
wrong.
this one, there was a special thing in the law that said they didn't have to keep this one secret.
Well, they're not gonna tell anything, that's a,
We're,
never mind, sorry.
okay, well, for the
If I know
general
you're
election,
coming, I'm gonna have everything hidden.
for the general election, I think it's at noontime on election day is the earliest they can announce what machine that they're going to audit.
Senator, let's move, there's some other questions around.
Sir,
Jim, I have a question, and just for everyone's background information, the way these machines work, there is a memory board that is put into the machine before the election, and there's also a backup board that the town clerk and the moderator keep locked. When they do these testings, are they taking the actual board out of the machine that counted the votes, or are they using the backup board that the town possesses.
They're not going to mess with the AccuVote machines at all. It won't be involved in this at all.
Then how do they test it on a new machine? Because you have to
We're
have
not,
the
we're
memory
not,
board in
we're
the
not
machine.
testing the memory board. What we're doing is just taking the ballots and running it through one of the new design type machines. This actually was specially designed for this purpose. And then we're going to take the tape, the printed tape from the AccuVote machine and the printed tape from this new machine and go down through the races.
Right, but that new machine has to be programmed to read that ballot.
Correct.
The ballot in Gilmanton is not the same as the ballot
Correct.
in Laconia, because it reads on a grid system. It's like a bingo card. B3 is a
And
vote for Sununu, whereas B5 is a vote for someone else, a testerman. But in different towns, that machine has to be programmed to read that ballot. So how is this new machine going to be programmed? What's the card
The
that you're
actual
using?
selection of what communities are going to be audited will be done in time before the election so that the machines, the new machines can be programmed, but it will be kept secret until at least noontime on election day.
Okay, I still wanna know where that card is coming from, because
There is
you
no-
have to program that new machine to read that ballot from whatever
On this,
town.
on this, it would be software on the computers.
Yeah,
It wouldn't actually be a card on this.
If we wanna get into the minutia of this, we can talk to.
I'll stay after. and everybody wants
That's
to
my suggestion.
Ask me
Stay after.
questions.
Any other
I'll be happy.
questions of general interest? Yes, back in the back.
Just out of curiosity, Ward 1 Laconia, is that the one that was flubbed by Tony Felch? That was
That was
6?
six.
Okay, I was just curious if that was specifically for that
Skip.
reason.
Granite Rock reported earlier that the Wyndham incident has happened again, that the fold of the ballot which overrode the oval has been reported. We have that information, an image of that particular absentee ballot. So I'm wondering if you would be able to bring that to the attention of the appropriate folks and say, maybe we need to look at Wyndham once again.
Well, I would encourage anyone, especially if they're within the percentage, that allows for a very inexpensive, I'm sure we can find people that would be more than willing to donate them the amount of money to make sure those recounts happen. And we're interested in the races that are right around where the fold would be, and we can check that out in a recount.
Okay.
And just forward the stuff to me that
One
you got.
last question over here, Jim.
Yes, sir.
If we, anyone of us here had seen any irregularities or suspected regularities yesterday?
I can tell you.
Dave.
So last night I went to bed 94% reporting. I was losing by a certain amount. I woke up in the morning and I gained 210 votes. Plummer lost 7 and Tim gained 6. So I called the Secretary of State's office and said, what's going on? He said, listen, we have so many ballots that have been rejected by the machines that be hand counted that as they come in, we're gonna redo the numbers. So my race hasn't been called yet, just because of that reason. So, so just to let you all know, you might know this, if you write something on your ballot, it's gonna get kicked out. Well, and no one gets counted on the ballot. If you overvote or undervote, so though you have all these votes that got kicked out, that weren't in that machine tape, that have to be counted by hand. So right now, I'm behind Tim by 361 votes. But I'm here to talk about something else about that when we have questions and answers. I don't wanna bring it up right now, but I have something I'd like to say.
So some irregularities. have
Yeah,
been
so that's
noticed.
a little strange, so I just thought I'd call about it now, so they know it's, so the vote totals are gonna change, and the same thing with Bill Wright, I guess his changed too overnight.
All right, we'll talk
So
about
you
it
know.
when we get into that general
Right.
session. Lady behind you had her hand up.
Just that, I asked the moderator at the Belmont High School election center a whole bunch of questions, what he knew about the machine, and the answer was not much. And that was pretty disturbing, that he is the election moderator, and he said, quote unquote, not much.
Well, then we'll get into a sort of a more freewheeling discussion of the concerns, the good things, the bad things, et cetera, suggestions for the future when we get a little farther down here.
Mr. Chairman, before we leave voting machines, to come back with again later, I just want to point out by way of news, so that you're all aware of this, in case you're not, and I would venture to say there probably is at least one person who's not aware of this. There was a suit filed by Dan Richard, and I believe it was heard in Auburn, and I don't know whether it's in Hillsborough or Rockingham County, who knows their geography?
Brentwood.
But it was in Brentwood, I'm sorry. It was heard last week. And the challenge, and I'm only reporting this and not taking any position because I don't know enough about it, but the challenge is that according to Dan Richard, that the state constitution requires that all of the votes that are cast in a general election or a primary contest, or even a municipal election, are to be hand counted. That's his interpretation of the Constitution. That's the case that he presented. And the judge has yet to, and of course went back and forth between Dan Richard and the attorney who opposed the complaint that was filed. And I just want you all to know, no decision has yet been rendered by the judge. So just keep an eye on that because that's kind of interesting.
Skip.
If anybody is interested in watching that hearing, it is posted in its entirety on Granite Rock.
Yes?
Thank you. Yeah, just something that came across last night. There was an incident in Wyndham. The vote totals weren't adding up with the machines, and that was at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they were sending more people down. At 3 something, they had kind of declared winners, but we'll wait and see what happens.
That's a shocking outcome.
Just throw that out there.
Lightning strikes twice.
Shocking. I'm gonna go a little variation from the agenda and take things a little bit out of order. Our website has been up and running now for about a month, and as on the website, there's a link where people can click to subscribe, if they want to subscribe to our emails, etc. And I've been getting periodic notifications, and I add people to the email list based on that, other than those who use vulgar terms to refer to our committee, which there's been one. The Facebook, we have a Facebook page, and that's up, and we've had a couple of posts where they've necessitated blocking the individuals from posting. Some of the usual suspects, they write nasty letters to the Sun. So, but I encourage you to go to the website. If you have any suggestions about changes to the website or the Facebook page, please let us know. We have a young lady here who Laura designed and implemented the website. And where is just Jackie?
Jackie's here too.
Jackie, where's Jackie? Where's Jackie? There's Jackie tirelessly did the Facebook stuff, and basically got the old Facebook page taken down or consolidated with our new Facebook page. So there is now only one BCRC Facebook page. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Jackie. Great job.
Chairman, I think it merits our mentioning that if anybody has any compliments, they should direct them to Laura and Jackie. If you have any complaints, we're getting really good at getting complaints, so complaints to us. Now, with respect to both of these social media, of course, you know, we would have loved to have had these up and running and many people following as much as 6 months, a year, or a year and a half ago. But there's an old saying that says, when should you plant a tree? And the answer is 20 years ago. And if you didn't plant it 20 years ago, when's the next time, the best time to plant a tree? And the answer is today. Well, fortunately, today was yesterday, a few yesterdays ago. And even though it would have been great to have it up 10 or 20 years ago, the fact of the matter is that both functioning, both of these women are doing a great job. And we appreciate any comments or suggestions you have for how we might improve it as we move along, because we got a basic website and a basic Facebook page going. We really want to build it out. We want it to be your Facebook page and your website, each one of you here. Thank you.
And the consideration probably needs to be given is whether or not we need to have a presence on Twitter or any other social media sites. There are a variety of them floating around, and any suggestions you have, let's give them to Jackie or Laura or us, whatever. And if you have any complaints, yeah, you can give those to us as well. I'd like to go to the pending approvals for general membership, applications for general membership.
Yes, sir. Thank you. On behalf of the executive committee, which met on the 24th of August and reviewed the applications of Erica Golter, John Fessenden, and Juliet Harvey Bolia. We recommend that the general members approve these 3 applications for members of the Belknap County Republican Committee as general members.
Is a second required?
No.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, approved. As I indicated on the agenda that was circulated, we're not gonna have a guest speaker tonight because we're gonna be talking sort of as an after-action report on the primary election yesterday and trying to deal with that. We have, our next meeting is the second Wednesday of October. We have not yet lined up guest speakers. We would like to have some suggestions from the group at large of whom we might get as guest speakers. I previously invited Jim Kofall from the 603 Alliance, but has said he was not available till after the general election, so that will be in November or December. So anybody that has suggestions for guest speakers that might be of interest to us, obviously we want guest speakers that are not going to produce slings and arrows thrown by the audience. So anybody that has some suggestions, please let us know as soon as possible, and we'll reach out to them and try to get them. You know, we've had some really good results. Let me bring to your attention that tomorrow at 1 o'clock, there is going to be a session of the House of Representatives, which is going to consider whether or not to override a variety of vetoes made by the governor. So tomorrow is what's called a veto session, which is going to be interesting to see what happens on those. I got the notification from the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance, which is basically recommending, as you might expect, an override of most of the vetoes. In reality, the likelihood of that occurring is probably remote, but it's going to be done anyhow. The last piece of business on tomorrow's agenda is a proposal to waive the normal rules of the House to have a bill considered without having a public hearing, without having been gone to a committee, which would basically take many, many thousands of dollars from the surplus funds of the state and deliver them to the utility companies for customers, supposed citizens who are within certain parameters of their income, etc., to try to offset the charges for electricity. Whether or not it actually, the rules get waived and it's heard is an open question, and whether or not if it's heard, it gets passed, is an open question. So that's going to be tomorrow, starting at 1 o'clock, and I believe it's live streamed like most things from the House.
Mr. Chair, in view of the fact that we're speaking about the House of Representatives, if we could return at least briefly to the report from any state rep and state senator and move on to the state reps, I have a report.
Okay.
Yes, I happened to attend an Americans for Tax Reform event in Manchester a couple of weeks ago, and one of the speakers was Speaker Packard. And when Speaker Packard arose to speak, he informed everyone who was present that it is his personal intention to make as the #1 legislative priority in the next session, assuming of course that we're returned to the majority, the passage of a Parent's Bill of Rights. And everybody applauded at the meeting, not here, but anyway, no joke. So he said that, and I approached him afterwards and I said, Mr. Speaker, thank you. And I said, is there anything I can do as the sponsor of the bill this past term, and any of my co-sponsors, the assistants, we'd be happy to do that. And he said, what we'd really like to do is have you work with us, but we'd really like to get leadership as the sponsors on the bill, because we believe that that will really give it the boost that it needs in order to get over the finish line. He said that, and then he called me last week and just kind of reaffirmed that in a personal phone call to me. So I wanted to report that all to you, because I know how many of us, all of us actually, at the time, were very disappointed at the fate of the Parents' Rights Bill. It was so encouraging to me to hear that the speaker on his own initiative, announcing to a crowd of representatives and others at this event that the Parents' Bill of Rights will be his #1 legislative priority as the speaker in the next term. And I thought it was very gracious of him to speak with me and then to call me and to extend a hand to me as the previous sponsor and some of my other co-sponsors so that we can get this taken care of. So hopefully 2023 will be the year. Thank you.
Any other state reps want to talk about reporting about pending legislation or upcoming things other than election matters, election law matters? Okay. So I've been asked to mention, of course, as you probably all know, in the federal races, there were 2 people who we endorsed who actually won their races. Now, not everybody, this was not a unanimous by the general membership, but rather by the executive committee. And so we have a situation in which Don Bolduc won the Senate primary to go against Maggie Hassan, and Caroline Levitt won the CD1 race primary to go against Chris Pappas. So the issue that's going to be in the future is the support that these people need. I read something on the web today that Bolduc claims to have won his primary without spending any money on TV ads, which is sort of remarkable. The fact of the matter is, Maggie is running, as you've probably all seen, Maggie is running TV ads out the kazoo, and so it's going to be a tough race, as is Caroline's race against Pappas. I think Bolduc is going to have a tougher race. What you're going to see is, and there have been a variety of chatter. There's a lot of chatter on the web, as we all know. If we're all, to the extent we're political junkies, you see a lot of chatter. There's chatter and indicating a concern about whether or not the national party will actually support these 2 candidates, or at least one of them, certainly Bolduc, in the general election with finances or whatever, or are they going to just say, well, you didn't select the candidate we wanted, so we're going to just give our money somewhere else, etc. So you need to keep that in mind. These people do need our support. They need our support on election day in the general election, and they need our support with money. And as I've said many times in these meetings, if you want your money to make a difference, if you're going to make campaign contributions to make a difference, make your campaign contributions directly to the candidate's campaign, directly, not through a variety of organizations that might be soliciting your money, and that, you know, it comes in this wave of money, and there's a little bit that dribbles out at the end to the candidates after commissions and administrative expenses and things of that sort. So I encourage you, if you've got money to spare or that you feel strongly about candidates, write your check directly to their campaigns. We've got a lot of really good Republicans that have been selected now in our primaries, not just those federal races, but in the state races as well. We've been very lucky in several of the races that were hotly contested in our county. But these people also, if you've noticed, since you're political junkies, you've got to have noticed that the Dems seem to have a lot of party discipline. They generally do not end up with a lot of candidates where they have to have a primary fighting each other. They generally weed them out, and by the time it gets to primary time, they basically have their candidates, their favorite candidates selected. We have not been able to do that in the Republican Party. We're sort of, we eat our own. We get a lot of people out there, and anybody can pay their $2 and file, and so we end up with a lot of people, and it produces somewhat of a free-for-all, and we need to think about that in the future if there's anything we can do about it. That being said, what I'd like to encourage the group to speak up about is, what did we do right yesterday and lead up to yesterday? And what did we do that not so right that we might be able to improve our results in the future? At this point, the Grok is going
Grok TV.